Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, I spilt coffee on my favorite shirt. Not happy. Um, anyways, not important. Well, to... Hey guys, original link to the video, top of the description. History with Hilbert, great channel. Preemptive like, what if the UK's languages had flags? Interesting. Let's give it a go.
The United Kingdom is home.
I like this one. That's nice. That just looks like the regular Welsh flag, but I don't know if the Welsh flag has this light blue strip in it. And then the Scots. I wonder what the yellow outlines of the... Is this the cross, the St. George cross? Interesting. It is hot in here. I'm complaining too much, sorry.
Home to many different languages.
Horrible intro. Guys, I'm sorry. We're here. We're doing it.
The United Kingdom is home to many different languages, and recently I've been thinking about language flags, that is, portraying different languages with different flags.
Love it. The Saudi Arabian flag is one of my favorite flags aesthetically. I know this isn't the Saudi Arabian flag, but just...
And some of the issues attached to it. And so I thought, what if we had language flags for each of the languages in the United Kingdom? Let's start with English. Of course, English is the main language of the United Kingdom, spoken by 91.1% of the population, which is around 52.5 million people. As I mentioned in this video, English is of course also a global language, and that might be reflected on the language flag that we use. At the same time though, because this is about the languages of the United Kingdom, maybe something a bit more regional, so the English flag would be appropriate. However, in this video, I think if I just used the regional flags, let's say of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, it would be quite a boring video. So I'm going to try to avoid these flags and come up with something new for each of the languages. A good starting point for English might actually be the Union Jack.
Also, I'm not just saying this because a large part of my audience that watches my reactions are British, but the Union Jack is top 3, definitely top 5 of my favorite flags. Also love this American flag.
Because although it largely developed in England and spoken by English people, it is now the main language spoken by people in each of its constituent nations. Therefore, I quite like this design, which I found on Reddit. It was posted and mentioned that it is, of course, the Union Jack with...
It looks like Norwegian Union Jack, German Union Jack, Montenegrin Union Jack, Union Jack.
Some modifications based on the influences on English. So we can see that in each corner we have a different influence. One being the colors of the Norwegian flag because of the Old Norse influence. Another corner has the colors of the German flag given its Germanic heritage. Another one has the gold and red of Rome because of the Latin influence at various points in England. And another has the red, white and blue of French, given that Norman had a very large influence on English. So the next language is Scots. Now for a long time Scots wasn't considered to be a separate language but rather a variety of English. It's a little bit hard to tell when someone is a Scots speaker rather than a speaker of Scottish English, but these...
I know I'm pausing a lot, but every now and then I get kind of annoyed of apologizing. Just fast forward or watch the original video, guys. When it said 91.1% of the United Kingdom spoke English, did they mean that 91.1% of the British population have English as their first language? Or are they saying that 8.9% of the British population don't understand English? Because that would surprise me.
These statistics are based on the previous census of people who self-reported being a Scots speaker, so we're going to take them at their word. That's around 2.23% of the UK's population, which is around 1.5 million people. Most of the time they are represented simply with St Andrew's flag, that is the saltire, the flag of Scotland. However, that's a little bit tricky in this case because Scotland doesn't just have Scots as a separate minority language. Therefore, it might be good to look at using a different flag. These are two examples that I found online that I really liked, and we'll go into why. They show the Scots language with not just the Scottish saltire, which features prominently, but also the red cross found on the flag of Ulster, which is a region in the north of Ireland where there are also Scots speakers as a result of 17th century migrations and plantations from Scotland that brought the language with them. As well, we have in the central shield the old flag of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria. This is
interesting. It reminds me of like a Spanish type symbol flag.
important for the old flag of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria. This is important for two reasons. The first being that it stretched up into what is today Scotland in the area of Lothian around Edinburgh, but especially for the Scots language because it is from this Northumbrian form of Old English that Scots developed on a separate path to the modern English language, which is why Scots is considered a separate language to English. Of the two designs though, I feel like the first is probably the best, just because it's a little bit less cluttered and because the majority of former Northumbria doesn't actually speak Scots. They speak standard English and have various dialects as well of English rather than being part of the Scots language area. Welsh is spoken by around 0.9% of.
I like the flag. I know I don't think he's just going for aesthetically what would be the best flag for these areas. He's just doing logically, right? I think this might look a little better if the red and yellow were in the foreground and this were in the background. But that's just aesthetically, I'm thinking.
Area. Welsh is spoken by around 0.9% of the UK's population, which is just over 500,000 people. The Welsh flag is one of the most iconic flags out there. It's frequently voted the best flag in the world, and you can see why. So I don't really want to make many changes to this flag, apart from to add one little blue stripe in the back. This blue stripe represents a colony of Welsh speakers in Argentina, where Welsh continues to be spoken to this day.
Really, Argentina is fascinatingly diverse in European heritage. There's that, common, a lot of Germanic influence, like Germans going there. I know there's a lot of Italian heritage in Argentina. Obviously, there's got to be Spanish heritage, but Welsh as well. I feel like I learn more and more how diverse the background of the peoples of Argentina are.
It also might represent those Welshmen who left their ancestral homeland and became migrants in new countries and took the language with them. So it's a small line of sea as well as a small line of Patagonia in the flag. So that's why I've decided to add that in. And apart from that, we'll be keeping the dragon exactly where he is. Scottish Gaelic is spoken by 0.2% of the UK's population. That's around 135,000 people. Again, Scottish Gaelic is mostly shown with the Scottish flag. However, as with Scots, this is a problem when you need to differentiate between the two. Most of the time, if you look online for a Scottish Gaelic flag, you'll find something that's a little bit generically Celtic. So like this example on the left, which is a lovely flag, but it could be used really for any of the Celtic nations with a triskelion and some knotwork. The other example given is a proposed flag for the Highlands, the region where most Gaelic speakers live, and again with its Nordic cross and its generic colours, it's not really something that specifically speaks to Scottish Gaelic, but rather to a region with connections to the Norse world. So I thought, let's make something a little bit different. This flag here, which I also found, connects Scotland, of course, with Ireland, with the Irish colours of green, white and orange language represented too. This is fitting because Scottish Gaelic originally came from Old Irish and then diverged, so it's closely related to the Irish language. However, again, this seems to be more of a joint flag rather than a specific flag for Scottish Gaelic.
So I see a lot of the languages other than English. English definitely has a lot of influence from pre-Norse and Nordic and Norman, French, Nordic influence. So the non-English languages of the British Isles, I feel must have much more connection to what languages were prior to the domination of English as a language. And so you're going to have more ancient roots, right?
That's why I thought it might be better to create something more specific, adding in a tartan pattern to show its connection to the Highlands and the Islands where Scottish Gaelic is spoken. But even this felt a little bit too generic to Scotland, and so I came up with another design that incorporates several elements of the history and the geography of where Gaelic is spoken today.
What is the fish? When do you say fishes? If a group of fish are fish, but fishes is also sometimes applicable. So when do you say fishes? I'm going on a tangent here, but I like this flag.
These are the Irish harp that points back to its connections to Ireland and the Irish language, as well as the coat of arms of the Lords of the Isles. This was a Gaelic-speaking political entity that was very powerful in the Hebrides. Finally, it includes the flag of Nova Scotian Gaelic speakers.
The Hebrides are those islands in the northwest of Scotland, right?
These are speakers of Scottish Gaelic.
All right, maybe I am talking
It's
too
the
much.
flag of Nova Scotian Gaelic speakers. These are speakers of Scottish Gaelic that moved across the sea to Canada and to this day continue to speak the language. So they should also be represented here on this flag. A final design that I came up with that I thought, well, let's have one design that's completely different to the saltire is a Celtic cross using the same colours as the saltire, but incorporating some elements specific to Scottish Gaelic. These are the waves that are found on the flag of the Outer Hebrides, and it incorporates the ship found on the coat of arms of the Lords of the Isles. Irish is another language that is spoken in the United Kingdom, largely in Northern Ireland by around 71,000 people, or 0.1% of the UK's total population. Most of the time, Irish is represented with the Irish flag. This is the flag of the Republic of Ireland.
Wait.
Largely Isles. Irish is another language that is spoken in the United Kingdom, largely in Northern Ireland by...
Okay, sorry, I got mixed up. I'm like, wait, most of the Irish-speaking people on the island of Ireland are in the Northern Ireland place. Didn't make sense, but we're talking about Britain, so...
Around 71,000 people, or 0.1% of the UK's total population. Most of the time, Irish is represented with the Irish flag. This is the flag of the Republic of Ireland, where the Irish language is official alongside English. However, as previously stated, this of course then relates the Irish language with the government of the Republic of Ireland. So it might be better to come up with something that is a little bit more independent. Some suggestions might be this flag, another former flag used by the Irish in the past, which shows the symbol of the Irish harp on a green background with several clovers, another important symbol for Ireland. But again, this is a rather political symbol and doesn't really speak too much for the language rather than the people. One flag that is interesting that I've seen recently is this flag.
I like it. One of my favorite flags that people might not agree with is the Japanese flag. I like it. It's so simple, but I like it. It's just all white here and then a red circle in the middle. I think it's very good. I'm not saying that more complicated flags aren't beautiful, but the simplicity of the Japanese flag, it works well and I love it.
It's used by an organization that's called Andromjerk, and this means the Red Group. They've been important advocates for the rights of Irish speakers in Northern Ireland, and were recently part of a movement that helped to get recognition for the language in Northern Ireland. However, I feel like I certainly hadn't seen this flag before I looked for it, and I'm not sure how well known it is outside Northern Ireland. So to represent the language, I feel like something that speaks more to Irish should be incorporated. I sat down on paint and had a little go myself and came up with this design. I still can't decide whether I like it or not, so let me know in the comments below.
I don't love it, but I think it'd be a lot better if it was just all green in the background and then the white outer circle, and then with this. But again, there's probably a lot of significance to these colors. But
it essentially incorporates several colors from the Irish flag, green, white and orange, as well as the yellow that is found, or the gold, on the flag of Ulster that we've already seen. It then finally incorporates the red hand of Ulster, another symbol, which is today often associated with loyalist paramilitaries, but historically also goes back to Irish oral tradition and has been used by both Irish and British aligned communities in the past. Finally, the Irish harp is added together with the red hand in a marriage of these two by way of trying to nullify any possible sectarian interpretation.
I wonder about the origin of the harp as an Irish symbol. I really don't know much about it.
Of this symbol. But again, let me know if I've succeeded in any of these goals or if it is ridiculous. I'll see the comments below. This language is often overlooked when it comes to the United Kingdom, and it goes by several names. Most of the speakers will call it patois. However, I'm going to turn it Insular Norman. It's spoken by 0.008% of the United Kingdom's population. So
I'd assume it's a more just Norman French.
Around 5,000 people. And to represent it, I'm going to use this flag, which I found online and that I really liked, which represents all the Channel Islands together, incorporating the flags of the two largest, that is Jersey and Guernsey, together to make this one. However, I felt that to represent the language of these islands, which are off the coast of Normandy and is an offshoot of the Norman French language, we should also include something to show the Normans.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Also, by the way, it's not a lot of people might know this, but the Isle of Jersey, the British-controlled Isle of Jersey that he just showed on a map, is where you get New Jersey from. And you might think, of course, but I don't know. Just because it's called Jersey doesn't mean that's exactly where it came from, but I learned it was. Beautiful flag. Love it.
These lions are found on the Norman flag. That's why they also became part of the English coat of arms. And so I've added them into the top left canton there to represent not only the Normans, but also the island of Sark, which has these lions on it, and where this language is also spoken currently by very few people. The Isle of Man technically isn't a part of the United Kingdom, but a crown domain. However, I'm still going to include it because we were in the neighborhood, and why not? Manx is the native language of the island, and it's spoken by around 2.6% of the total population of the island, which is around 2,200 people. This is particularly impressive because Manx actually officially went extinct in the 1970s when the last native speaker died, and has since been the subject of a particularly successful language revival movement, with many people who are now first language speakers as well as even more second language speakers. Most of the time, again, Manx is represented with the flag of the Isle of Man, which...
Love it. I don't know why I keep thinking that the red hand that you see of like Red Hand of Ulster was also a thing of the Isle of Man, but this is it, right? Not the
those
hand.
Are triskelion formed of 3 legs with golden spurs. One flag that I found online that may represent the Manx language but really is entailed to represent the Guadelic languages is this one. The Guadelic languages are those languages that have their origin in Ireland, so this of course includes Irish and also Scottish Gaelic and Manx, because the Manx language was brought there by Irish speakers from Ireland and then developed over the centuries into its own language. I had to fiddle around and created this Groningen monstrosity based on some of the other Celtic languages in the neighbourhood of Manx that played a role in its history as well, that being the flag of Ulster, the tricolour of Ireland, the Scottish saltire and the Welsh dragon, but the flag is a little chaotic.
Yeah.
I simplified it down using just the colours on the Manx flag onto a design again with a Nordic cross, because the Norse were an important part of the Isle of Man's history and indeed have loanwords in the Manx language, and created this example. But eventually I decided that again perhaps the best design would be to base it on a Celtic cross, given
The thing about the Nordic style crosses like you see with like Iceland and Sweden and Norway. Well, Sweden I think is more, is that, however, whether they're, despite being some influence, it's such a dominant force on any flag that it's always going to kind of over-represent its influence, because it's just so dominant, So
again, perhaps the best design would be to base it on a Celtic cross, given that this is a Celtic language and that the church played an important role in the revival of the Manx language, as many of the oldest texts written in the language, dictionaries and thesauruses and so on, were written by clergymen. It also speaks to the fact that the Manx language has been reborn. The cross is a symbol of regeneration and rebirth, and coming back from the dead, I thought was quite suitable in the case of the Isle of Man, and I thought it was quite a powerful design to look at in this.
I think it'd be cool if you made these yellow parts here of like the I forget what you call these, spurs or something. If you made them the red color here, but again, I don't know if that would mess up any symbolic meaning,
This way. So
what the heck do I know? Okay, I'm just kind of speaking.
That's my design for the Manx language.
Love it.
The final language is Cornish. Cornish is spoken by 0.0008% of the population, or around 500 people. And as with Manx, Cornish is also a language that has returned from the dead. But it's even more impressive because Cornish died out several hundred years ago and has also been the product of a successful language revitalization and rebirth movement.
Right, the Manx language was said to go extinct in, did it say 1970? And so you're still going to have a lot of semi-recent books and sources of the language, but 500 years ago, going to be, I feel like, significantly more difficult to revive, at least revive in a more authentic way.
Most of the time, Cornish is represented with the flag of Cornwall. It's called St. Piran's flag, and it's a white cross on a black background. Now, to make it a bit more specific to the Celtic language, I thought why not incorporate some Celtic knotwork? Perhaps even incorporate something to show that it's specifically for the Cornish language, with an emblem made of Celtic letters. But then again, I thought maybe a Celtic cross is the best way to go, and I think this is the best design that I came up with in any case. It of course has St. Piran's cross as a Celtic cross with the letters KRNW for Kernow. Kernow being the Cornish word for Cornwall, and so it incorporates some of the language onto the flag as well. So those were the language flags that I came up with. For English, we have this mixed design that I found online, which incorporates various elements of
the reason I said Montenegrin and is that these look like the exact shades of red and yellow that are in the Montenegrin flag, but it was the Roman influence. And in the beginning, I said the normal Union Jack, but obviously a more French
of English language's development and history. For Scots, we have prominently the Scottish saltire, but also the flag of Ulster behind it, which shows its connections to Northern Ireland. For Welsh, we of course have the Welsh dragon with a small stripe to remind us of the Welsh overseas and especially in Patagonia. For Scottish Gaelic, a Celtic cross of the same colours as found on the Scottish saltire and something to remind them of their maritime past and indeed the current area where Gaelic is spoken, largely the Hebrides, both inner and outer the islands. For Irish, something that tries to bridge the divide a little bit and not just using the Irish tricolour but incorporating some elements specific to Northern Ireland like the red hand and some of the colours employed. For Insular Norman, it's a collective flag that represents
my favorite by far. Just by the
Channel
look.
Islands and its connection to Normandy and the Norman language, of which it is a collection of dialects. Manx again
Great
looks
one.
to a Celtic cross and has the triskelion legs that are found on the Isle of Man and says something about its rebirth after dying out. And Cornish again has a similar cross design with the letters KRNW to show its connection to Kurnow or Cornwall in the Cornish language. Let me know in the comments below which of these language flags is your favorite, which one.
Oh my god, this one. So my favorite, I would need more knowledge about, to give my favorite in terms of incorporation of the influences of the languages portrayed on the flag. I can't really speak to as much. I mean, does the more things that you put in the flag that incorporate every single influence that is known to influence the language be better? I'm not sure about that. But I can just give my aesthetic opinions, right? This one, by far, this would be one of my favorite. If this was a real flag, it would be in my top 5, maybe top 3, maybe number 1. I love the look of this flag. Something about this one. Let me go to the other one I like. This one, love it. This one, it's nice, but I feel like it would look better if the white was in the background and the red was in the foreground. This one here is just chaotic. Looks sort of nice. And I do like how it incorporates. So this is the English one. How it incorporates, with 4 sections of the flag, the main influences of the language. So that's very nice. But it is pretty chaotic. I don't really know how to improve it in any way. Maybe I don't know. This one just I don't love the look of it. I think it'd be better if it was just all green, but again, you'd remove some other influences that might be important to show on the flag. And then there's the Welsh flag is really barely changed at all. I think it'd be kind of cool if you had a sort of Celtic symbol that the dragon is almost kind of grasping like an orb or something. That could be crazy. And then these 2 flags. So, which I think this one looks like too much of a drawing in the bottom right, of just like the waves and then a boat. I think honestly, maybe incorporating the waves into more thin and then putting it inside the cross and then just having a bigger boat in this corner would be cool. Or just make this circle here, the half white and half blue to kind of symbolize the waves, but in a non-wave form. And then this one here just looked a little too simple. I would love to hear your guys' opinions on it, and if you completely disagree with me, obviously I'd love to see that. As always, your comments, and any answers to questions I ask. You guys are freaking awesome in the comments. I say that a lot, but I truly mean it. Yes, love you guys. This one is missing something. I'm maybe like another black thin outline on each of these would make it a bit better, or just another black outline thin that just goes around this entire thing, I think would make a nice look to it. But I'm speaking on how it looks to me, which is obviously an opinion, and I could be messing up some significance of the influences on the flag, so I understand that. But those are my thoughts on the flags. Does he have a sponsor or something?
Videos, so please don't hesitate to reach out. That is it. I always get some great emails after flag videos, so please don't hesitate to reach out.
Should
that
I
is it
email
for
him
now, though.
all of my
Let me
things
know
there?
in the comments below. I always love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next video. Let me know as well what kind of videos you would like to see, if there are some more language flag videos or ideas that you have. I know the previous language flags video did quite well, talking about various global languages, so I think I might revisit the topic and make something else on it there.
I don't know the reason for this. That'd be interesting to learn, but I'm not sure how many people would be interested. Maybe I'll just watch that on my own.
Could do one for some other countries, for example, looking at how we might represent the languages of, let's say, Germany. But I think the UK is quite special in this way, certainly in Europe, for the amount of languages that it has, being the repository of all the Celtic languages apart from Breton. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I have been Hilbert, and this has been The History.
So what I would love to see, it'd be a lot of work because there are 50 states, but maybe regional flags in the United States. I would love to see, because the vast majority of America is English speaking, right? Most every state would, when it came to languages, language themed flags of all US states, they'd all be English themed, right? So that'd probably be boring. But to see, I would love to see flags, state flags of the U.S. changed to look like the ancestral makeup of those states, or at least the geographic areas. So, like in Wisconsin and Minnesota, you probably have a lot of Scandinavian influence in the flags. In a lot of New England areas and East Coast, you'd have a lot of British, Irish, Italian influence. In the South, Midwest, pretty much all over, you'd have a lot of German influence. In the more southern states, you'd have some Spanish influence. So I think it'd be cool to make the same idea, but for U.S. states, but for the heritage of the populations, rather than just, they would all be English themed if it was about language. So that'd be a lot of work, though. But yeah, that'd be cool to see. Love y'all. Hope everyone's doing well. I've gone on long enough in this video. It's almost twice as long as a regular runtime. So hopefully I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning together. Bye, guys.